A $4.2 million construction project just got frozen because of a 12-foot strip of land a retired postal worker bought for $47 in 1977. And the developer never saw it coming, because Raymond Solis had been waiting 47 years for exactly this moment. Whitfield was already pacing when his assistant picked up the phone. It was 6:47 in the morning. His client, Meridian Capital Development, had broken ground 14 months ago on a $4.2 million water treatment facility outside Millhaven County. Permits approved, bond money released, concrete already poured, and now the whole project was frozen. A 12-foot strip of land cut directly through the facility's access corridor. A strip Meridian's title team had missed. A strip that belonged, free and clear, to a man named Raymond Solis, a retired postal worker from a town with one stoplight and a grain elevator that stopped working in 1998. Whitfield pulled the parcel records. He found Raymond's address. He dialed. A woman answered. Her voice was calm. Whitfield asked if her husband knew his land was blocking a $4.2 million development. She said, "He's known about that property since before you were probably out of law school." Whitfield set down his pen. Rewind 47 years. October 14, 1977. The Millhaven County Fire Hall, 4 folding tables pushed together at the front, a coffee pot on a card table by the door. 8 people in plastic chairs, most of them there to bid on the old Harker farmhouse before the bank recycled it. Raymond Solis sat in the back row. He was 31 years old. He wore the same jacket he wore to his postal exam 6 years earlier. He had a cashier's check for $47 in his breast pocket, made out to the county clerk. The auctioneer was a heavy-set man named Duval. He worked fast and talked louder than necessary and had a habit of winking at people who didn't ask him to. The big item was the Harker farmhouse, 280 acres, good soil on the east side. The bank had held the note since 1974 and was moving it today at whatever the room would bear. A man in the third row paid $81,000 for it without blinking. His name was Gerald Crane. He wore a pressed shirt and a sport coat on a Tuesday morning, which in Millhaven meant he thought he was important. He bought the Harker house the way some people buy gas, without looking at the price, just trusting it would be fine. Duval thanked him. The room applauded. Then Duval held up the next item. He turned the parcel map sideways and squinted at it, said it was a strip of county land that had been sitting in tax delinquency since 1961. Said the estate billing it had been dissolved years ago. Said nobody had paid the $12 annual tax in 16 years. He said, "What we've got here, folks, is 12 feet wide and half a mile long. No structure, no road access, basically a ditch." Gerald Crane laughed out loud. Others smiled. Someone near the coffee pot said it wasn't worth the ink on the deed. Raymond raised his hand. Gerald looked back at him, looked at the jacket, looked away. Duval said, "Going once, going twice." Raymond paid $47. Duval handed him the receipt and said, "Son, you just bought yourself the world's longest puddle." The room laughed again. Raymond folded the receipt into his breast pocket, buttoned it closed, and picked up his coat from the back of the chair. Gerald Crane was already outside by then, talking to a man with a clipboard about fencing the east side of the Harker acreage. He did not look at Raymond. He had already decided Raymond was not worth looking at. That was his first mistake, his only one, as it turned out. But it was enough. Raymond drove home on Route 9. His wife Elena was waiting at the kitchen table with supper still warm. She asked how the auction went. He set his coat over the chair and sat down. He said, "I got the strip." She said, "The ditch?" He said, "Yeah." She served the food. He ate slowly. Outside, the last of the October light was going flat across the fields. The strip ran along the back end of the old Harker land, 12 feet wide, invisible from the road, worth nothing to anyone who didn't know what he knew. Raymond knew something nobody else in that fire hall had known. He'd known it before he ever wrote the check. He didn't say what it was, not yet. He folded his napkin, set it beside his plate, and picked up his coffee cup with both hands. Elena watched him the way she always watched him when he went quiet like this. Not worried, not pushing, just watching, the way a person watches a sky they've learned to read. Raymond stared at the window. He was already thinking 47 years ahead. Before this gets even crazier, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Because what Raymond does next is something no developer, no lawyer, and no county official ever saw coming. Third drawer from the bottom. That's where Raymond found it. March 1978. A Tuesday. The Millhaven County Library Annex behind the post office. Not the main branch with the new carpet, but the older room with the long, flat drawers that stuck when the humidity climbed. Raymond had asked the desk clerk for the historical plat index from 1950 through 1965. She pulled it from a shelf without looking up and handed it to him like it was a phone book. He spent 4 hours at the reading table. The first 2 drawers gave him nothing he didn't already know. Standard parcel maps, boundary surveys, a 1962 road widening project on the north side of the county that had nothing to do with Millhaven's southern corridor. The third drawer had what he was looking for. County Road Project 14C, filed 1956, a proposed access corridor running southeast from the state highway, intended to connect the county's future industrial water intake to a treatment site on low ground near the old mill pond. The project was budgeted, surveyed, filed with the recorder's office in June of 1956, and then canceled in 1959 when the county chose a longer route further east. Raymond read the cancellation memo twice. It listed the budget return, the surveyor's final sign-off, the engineer's release. What it did not list was a recorded abandonment of the easement. The corridor was canceled. The road never built, but the legal easement, 12 feet wide, half a mile long, running directly through the back of what used to be the Harker parcel, had never been formally dissolved. It was still on the books. Raymond copied the file number onto his notepad. Serial number 14C 1956 MLH, block letters, underlined twice. He sat with that for a moment. He closed the drawer. He told Elena that night after supper. She was standing at the stove. The kettle was on. He spread a paper bag on the kitchen table and drew a rough map with a ballpoint pen. The state highway at the top, the old Harker land below it, the strip running along the back boundary, and the low ground near the mill pond where the water table sat close to the surface. He circled the low ground. Elena set 2 cups down and looked at the map. She said, "That's where they'd build." He said, "If they ever did." She poured the water. He drew a dotted line connecting the state highway access point to the low ground. The only straight path ran through the old Harker land, directly through the strip. Elena looked at the dotted line for a long moment. She said, "And nobody else has that piece." He said, "Nobody." She picked up her cup and sat down across from him. She didn't ask anything else. That spring, Raymond filed a quiet title action on the strip. It was a legal procedure to formally confirm his ownership. No disputes, no competing claims, no argument. A judge reviewed the deed, the tax records, and the 1977 receipt. The hearing lasted 4 minutes. Nobody contested it. The judge signed the order and handed it back to the clerk. Raymond now owned the strip, free and clear, with a court order behind it. He drove home on Route 9. He stopped once, at the back corner of the old Harker land, and looked out at the strip. 12 feet of nothing, flat, overgrown at the edges, easy to miss, easy to forget. He pulled a small notebook from his jacket, a green one Elena had given him the previous Christmas, plain cover, nothing written on it yet. He opened to the first page and wrote the date, then the file number, then the judge's name and the order number. He wrote, "Quiet title confirmed, strip is mine." Then he closed the notebook and drove home. Over the next 2 years, Raymond watched. He walked the strip 4 times a year. He noted the survey flags that appeared along the Harker land's eastern boundary in 1981. Orange flags, which meant active survey work, which meant someone was measuring. He wrote the date in the notebook. He tracked the county recorder filings. In 1982, the Harker land sold to an LLC registered in the state capital. Raymond wrote the LLC name in the notebook. In 1983, 3 adjacent parcels changed hands to different LLCs. Same registered agent on all 3. Raymond wrote that too. The pattern took shape slowly, the way a photograph develops in a darkroom. Outlines first, then edges, then the full image. Someone was assembling land on the south side of Millhaven County, parcel by parcel, LLC by LLC, working quietly, not drawing attention, buying properties that looked unconnected until you laid them side by side on a map. Raymond laid them side by side on the kitchen table map. They formed a corridor, running from the state highway to the low ground near the mill pond. Every piece of that corridor was now under the same quiet ownership. Every piece except one. Raymond looked at the map for a long time. He looked at the strip, his 12-foot wide stretch of nothing, cutting directly across the only straight line between the highway and the build site. He looked at the 1956 file number written in the margin of the paper bag, an unextinguished easement, a quiet title deed, a strip that cost $47. Without it, no access corridor was possible, no county approval for a treatment facility, no legally defensible path from the highway to the site. The whole assembly, hundreds of acres, years of careful buying, came down to 12 feet. Raymond closed the notebook. He already knew how this ended. $240,000. That's what the man on the front porch said before Raymond had even offered him a chair. His name was Torrens, late 30s, pressed khakis, a clipboard with a typed letter on top. He worked for a regional land acquisition firm. He said he represented a development group that was very interested in the Millhaven corridor. Said they'd done their research. Said $240,000 for a 12-foot strip was more than generous. He said it with the confidence of someone who had never once been told no. Raymond looked at him. Then he looked past him at the strip, running along the back edge of the field, overgrown and flat and easy to miss. He said, "No, thank you." Torrens blinked. He said he wasn't sure Raymond understood the full value of the offer. Raymond said, "I understand it." Torrens left his card. Raymond set it on the kitchen table. Elena looked at it. She didn't pick it up. She asked, "Same answer as before?" He poured coffee and sat down. He said, "Same answer." Raymond paid his $12 annual tax every March. He mowed the strip twice a year, once in early spring, once in late August, with a push mower he'd had since 1983. He kept the survey markers clear. He kept the corners flagged. The strip looked like nothing. That was the point. In 1998, the county sent a letter, a formal one, on county stationery, signed by the district infrastructure coordinator. It said Millhaven County was moving forward with a regional water infrastructure bond, said the southern corridor was under consideration, said the county was prepared to acquire the strip through standard eminent domain proceedings at fair market value. The offer was $61,000. Raymond had 30 days to respond. He responded on day 29, one sentence, "No." 3 weeks later, a county attorney called, polite but firm, said the parcel had no independent utility, said Raymond couldn't demonstrate active use, said there were legal mechanisms available to the county if a private owner refused to cooperate with infrastructure development. Raymond listened to all of it without interrupting. Then he said, "I mow it twice a year. I pay the tax on time. I have a quiet title order from 1979. If the county wants to argue active use, I'll see them at the hearing." The county attorney said he'd be in touch. He never called back. Raymond's daughter, Lucia, was 12 that summer. She came with him once when he mowed the strip, sat on the tailgate of the truck and watched him push the mower in a straight line, back and forth for 40 minutes. She asked him why he bothered. He didn't answer right away. He finished the row. He turned the mower around. Then he said, "Because a thing you don't maintain looks like a thing you forgot." She didn't ask anything else. She remembered it, though. Across town, in an office Raymond had never been inside, Gerald Crane was making calls he didn't want to make. The Millhaven Corridor project, the one his holding company had been assembling since 1981, was fully permitted. The site was ready. The construction timeline was set. His lawyer, Whitfield, had confirmed that every parcel in the corridor was clean. Every parcel except one. Whitfield had flagged it in a memo in 2001. A 12-foot strip held by a private owner. The title search had turned up the quiet title order. The easement question was complicated. Whitfield said he needed more time. Gerald told him to figure it out. By 2004, Whitfield came back with a strategy. Send a real offer, a big one. Make it impossible to refuse. Whitfield flew in from the Capitol in a rented car. He knocked on Raymond's front door on a Wednesday morning. 3-piece suit, leather briefcase. He introduced himself and said Meridian Capital was prepared to offer $340,000 for the strip. He said this was final. He said the project was moving forward regardless. Raymond poured coffee and set a cup in front of him. He let Whitfield finish. Then he said, "No." Whitfield set down his cup. He said Meridian had identified a legal theory that the original 1956 easement corridor had been constructively abandoned. Said the case would be expensive. Said Raymond would likely lose. Raymond reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. He removed a certified copy of the 1956 filing and set it on the kitchen table. He said, "The road was abandoned. The easement wasn't. They're two separate filings. I've had a quiet title order for 25 years and I've paid tax on this parcel every year since 1977. Whitfield looked at the filing. He looked at Raymond. He picked up his briefcase and left without finishing his coffee. 9 years passed. The strip sat. Raymond mowed it. He paid the $12. He watched the notebook fill with dates and offer amounts and names. Then on a Tuesday morning in October 2013, a number he didn't recognize lit up his phone. He looked at it for a moment. He picked it up. "Mr. Solis," the voice said, "we're prepared to offer $480,000. Final offer, no contingencies." Raymond was already standing at the kitchen window, looking out at the strip. He said, "I'll call you back." He hung up. He called Lucia. She was a property attorney now, had been for 11 years. He told her what the number was. He told her who it was. There was a pause on her end. Not surprise, but the specific silence of someone organizing thoughts quickly. She said, "Don't call them back yet. I'm coming Saturday." She drove 4 hours with a file box in the back seat. Saturday morning, she spread everything on the kitchen table. The original 1977 deed, the 1979 quiet title order, the 1956 filing, serial number 14C 1956 MLH. The certified county records Raymond had requested in 1998. Every offer letter, every refusal, every date written in the green notebook. She read in silence for 40 minutes. Elena set coffee on the table and went back to her chair by the window. Lucia turned to the final page of the notebook. She looked at Raymond. She said, "Dad, they've been taxed on an easement that never closed for 67 years. If the county's own tax records show continuous separate assessment of that corridor, Meridian's abandonment argument collapses before it starts." Raymond nodded. She said, "Did you know that when you bought it?" He said, "I knew the door was open." She closed the notebook. She picked up her phone. She called Whitfield's office on Monday morning. She identified herself. She said Raymond Solis was not interested in a lump sum purchase. She said if Meridian wanted to pursue the abandonment claim, they were welcome to do so in front of a judge, and she would bring the 67 years of county tax records showing annual assessment of the corridor as a separate taxable parcel, which legally constituted continuous municipal recognition of the easement's active status. She said it calmly, like she was reading a weather report. Whitfield said he'd need to consult with his client. Lucia said, "Take your time." He called back in 2 days. Gerald Crane wanted a hearing, said Meridian had a right to challenge the easement's validity, said the abandonment theory was sound. Lucia said, "See you there." The hearing room was small, wood-paneled, 3 rows of chairs, most of them empty, a county magistrate behind the bench, a clerk to his left. Lucia placed 3 documents on the table in front of her. The 1956 easement filing, original. The 1959 project cancellation memo, which referenced the road, not the easement, and 67 years of county tax assessment records, rubber-banded together, each one showing the strip assessed as a separate parcel, never folded into the surrounding land, never declared surplus, never released. Whitfield stood and made his argument. Constructive abandonment, lack of use, public interest. Lucia waited until he finished. She said, "The county taxed this corridor as an independent parcel every single year from 1956 to the present. You cannot abandon something you keep billing." The magistrate looked at the tax records. He looked at Whitfield. He ruled in 2 minutes. Whitfield reached for his phone before he was out of his chair. The negotiation took 3 weeks. Lucia handled it from her kitchen table, 2 hours at a time, between other cases. Raymond wanted no lump sum. He wanted a permanent recorded easement agreement. Meridian's right to use the corridor, paid to Raymond monthly, adjusted for inflation every 3 years, transferable to his heirs, secured against the facility itself with right of reversion if payments lapsed. Whitfield pushed back on the inflation clause. Lucius said no. He pushed back on the transferability. Lucius said no. He accepted every term on a Thursday afternoon and emailed the draft agreement at 4:47 p.m. Lucia called Raymond. He picked up on the second ring. She said, "It's done." He said, "What's the number?" She said, $4,400 a month, inflation adjusted, yours and Mom's for life, then mine. Raymond was quiet for a moment. He said, "That'll do." He set the phone down. Elena was at the stove. She didn't ask what the call was about. She had been watching this for 36 years. She already knew the shape of it. She put the kettle on. The signing was at the county clerk's office on a Wednesday morning. A notary, a stack of papers. Raymond signed his name 11 times in 20 minutes. He walked out to his truck. The October air was sharp and flat the way it always was in Mill Haven this time of year. He sat in the driver's seat. He opened the green notebook to the last blank page. He wrote the date. He wrote the monthly amount. He wrote one more line. Corridor secured, 47 years, $47 in, $4,400 a month out. He closed the notebook. Gerald Crane read about the agreement in the County Weekly. 3 paragraphs, inside page. No comment from Meridian. No comment from Raymond. Gerald set the paper down. He said nothing. Down at Duval's old fire hall, now a storage unit rental office, 2 men who had been at the 1977 auction talked about it over coffee. One of them remembered the ditch, remembered the laugh. Neither of them said much after that. Raymond reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the original receipt, $47, made out to the Mill Haven County Clerk. Dated October 14th, 1977. Creased into quarters, yellowed at the folds. He looked at it for a moment. He put it back. Some men spend their whole lives buying things worth having. Raymond Solis spent his life keeping one thing worth keeping. If you were Raymond, would you have taken the $480,000 lump sum or held out for $4,400 every single month for the rest of your life? Drop your answer below. And if this story got to you, you already know what to do.